Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys. And our guy Blake is actually out today. They're doing a much-deserved early Father's Day dinner for him, Blake and his family. So we obviously can't intrude with that. But we got probably the best possible pre-draft substitute co-host. I'm just going to call you that, Stephen. You're substitute co-host today. Stephen Gillaspie from No Ceilings NBA. No Ceilings, guys, if you're not familiar, they do fantastic draft work. It's not just Stephen, it's all of those guys. I know I read all of the mock draft stuff, the big board stuff myself to help color my own opinions on some of these players. So if you guys aren't doing that, please do. They do great work. It's a great team to support. But Stephen, man, thank you so much for being willing to hop in on a little bit of short notice. I reached out to him, I think, last night. So I appreciate you willing to jump in with me here today.
Wes, man, thanks for having me. Thank you for the promotion, too. I wasn't expecting to come on here and be announced as substitute co-host, but I'm honored to be here and to fill in those shoes. Assistant to the host is what I would like to be called because of my affinity for the TV show The Office. But, man, it's awesome. Hot tagged in here, as a wrestling fan. I appreciate the hot tag coming in here, ready to let all my takes fly off the cuff, man. I'm excited to be here, dude. It's my favorite time of year.
Oh, I bet. And we're excited to have you. So the way this is going to work, guys, if you're here tuning in live, of course, thank you for that. But if you've got any draft prospects that you really want to make sure that we get Steven to cover, then please put that into the live chat for us. Otherwise, I've got a couple of names that I want to go through on my own. I'm sure we're going to get some live as well. But first, it's not really news, right? But it feels like there's news. There seems to be this momentum right now behind the idea that Giannis is going to be traded to the Miami Heat. And as a part of that deal, it is possible that Detroit could be getting Tyler Hero. So, obviously this is all very much just rumors, very well substantiated rumors. I mean, this is coming from Mark Stein. It's not a person that just throws stuff at the wall. So why don't we just kind of entertain this for fun, since this is kind of captured the minds of Pistons fans. What would you think about bringing Tyler Hero in to the Pistons?
I think it's a smart play just because, Wes, you guys know this far better than me, so I'm not going to try to come on a Pistons show and act like I'm in the thick of it just like you guys. But from what I've watched and, I listen to pretty much everything, basketball related in terms of podcast media. So I consume a lot of stuff, like even outside of just draft. And the prevailing thought just seems to be that Cade Cunningham is in desperate need of anybody who can step in and provide some sort of offensive lift. Dennis Jenkins did his best coming in off the bench to provide a little bit of that support as well. But I just think that, Tyler Hero being able to come in, space the floor, has shown that he can handle the ball a little bit, wouldn't be asked to do anything more than what he's already shown that he's capable of doing. And it's interesting because I think Tyler Hero gets talked about in a way that's like he averages like 14, 3 and 1 or something like that. But if you look, my man has been putting up numbers in for the Miami Heat. So I think, suitable, kind of offensive co-star for Cade still gives you decent size in the backcourt as well. And, even if he's not the best defensive guy in the world, you still have a pretty solid defensive infrastructure to be able to kind of hide those little weak links that he has. So I would be for it, man. I don't think that it's going to cost you a whole heck of a lot. There doesn't seem to be like some high demand, Tyler Hero trade market. So you want to kind of get in while the iron's still hot before, he ends up going somewhere else and showing that he can do more outside of that unique Miami system.
And just to put some numbers to this, you said he's scoring really well. He is. So he's got now, what is this? 5 seasons in a row. He's been more than 20 points per game over that stretch. He's blistering from 3, well above league average. The lowest number here is 37%. So he's doing really solid on good volume there. His best year was probably 2 seasons ago, averaged 23.9 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 5.5 assists. That was 47% from the floor, 37% from 3. and he got to the line pretty well. 4 attempts from the line, 88% there. So yeah, I mean, this is a scorer, right? This is a bucket getter. This is the type of player that, really outside of Cade Cunningham, the Pistons just don't really have. I love what Jalen Duren was able to do as a second scoring option for the Pistons last year. I think what's really interesting with a player in the archetype of Tyler Hero, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this. It's similar to like a Trey Murphy in that these are really off-ball type players. So if you're looking for a guy that can come in and kind of get a high level of scoring volume without taking too many of creation opportunities away from a player like Jalen Duren, who's kind of been ascending into that sort of role the past couple of years, that seems like a really easy win. You just get to add buckets without taking too much away, which could be a little unique.
Yeah, and I think, looking in the chat over here, Michael Dompier, first off, thank you for the comments and stuff as the official substitute co-host. We greatly appreciate the comments here. Looking at the stats that you just dropped, 15 points per game, 4 boards, 3.5 assists. That's in an offensive system where he's really been, for the most part, like consistently year over year, been the best kind of like offensive hub that you can go to. I understand Jimmy Butler's been sprinkled into some of those numbers, things like that. But Bam has largely been the best player on this team in recent games. And I think that Hero just being able to be honed in on as like the real floor spacing threat on a team in the playoffs, that's easy to kind of X out, right? And try to force everybody else to beat you. I feel like him coming in and playing off of Cade Cunningham, off of a playmaking big man to the effect of what we just saw from Jalen Duren this year, I think it makes his life a little bit easier too. His life in Miami is really hard offensively. And we just got done speaking to the fact, Wes, that he's a 20-point per game scorer on solid efficiency. Playing off of Cade Cunningham, who might be the best point guard in the entire NBA if all things are equal, I think his life gets easier too. I think this is like a, symbiotic relationship here between the two.
If you guys want to get excited about anything with these rumors, I think it would be literally what you just said. Name the shooter that has gotten worse or just stayed at their level when they came to Detroit and played next to Cade Cunningham. You bring in Malik Beasley, historic year. You bring in Duncan Robinson. Suddenly Duncan Robinson looks viable. When he left Miami, everyone thought he was done. That was the end of Duncan Robinson. No, comes in, he's a starter all year, and Cade gets him another Pistons historic 3-point shooting season. So yeah, if you got a guy like Tyler Hero that's going to come in, he's taken almost 9 3-point attempts per game, hitting 38% of them, and you're telling me that guy gets to play off of a great big point guard in Cade Cunningham, that could be kind of magical. So if you want to get excited, I'd say that's the pitch, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And just real quick, I'm hearing thundering. Being in Southeast Georgia, if I go away, I'm okay. It's just that a crazy thunderstorm might have knocked my power out. So I apologize ahead of time, Wes. These things just kind of sneak in. It's like the jungle out here. But I listen to mutual friend of ours, Wes, Bryce Simon, on Game Theory, and I read his work and stuff like that too. And I've really adopted his mindset that like floor spacing makes everybody's life easier. And it doesn't matter what stage in your franchise you are, whether that be rebuilding, contention, what have you. And I've heard him float out names like, if we could bring in a Sam Merle or someone along those lines, right? Like Tyler Hero is supercharged at that, and he gives you a lot more than just the floor spacing ability. I mean, someone who you can trust to help pass people open on the second side in a scramble, like he could do so much with the ball in his hands that I think that he gives this team a much needed wrinkle on the offensive end too. And to your point, Wes, like I can't name a single shooter who went to go play with Cade Cunningham and their life became more difficult, So to me, this is a win-win. And I know a lot of things kind of have to be in play in order for a move like this to happen. These 3-team trades where everybody's trying to keep their assets as close to the vest as possible. It's hard to make these things happen. There's a lot of machinations in play. But if you could bring in Tyler Hero, again, I don't think it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. And I think it's only going to help your offense be even more tailor-made for what offensive schemes are looking to do in the modern NBA.
Steven, this is a deep cut for Pistons fans, but in the season from hell that was a couple of years ago, Danilo Gallinari came into Detroit at the trade deadline and looked viable until he asked politely to leave. And that's 100% to do with Cade Cunningham. But all right. Enough just rampant trade speculation. Because at this point, that's all it is. It seems like, there's a little bit more substance to it. That was why we're doing the conversation here at the start. But this is a draft show, right? We got the draft coming up on Tuesday, which is just wild. Wild. I mean, from a Pistons perspective, like, for so long, we get to January, we're talking draft. This year, I wasn't thinking draft till like June. I was like, no, the season ended in June. I thought, okay, I really got to get my stuff up here for the draft. And then naturally I turned to you guys over at No Ceilings. But I'm going to throw you a softball here, all right, Steven, because I know you like this guy. Let's just start off with Ibuka Okori. So Pistons fit, general thoughts on the player. You can kind of take this anywhere you want to go. But where are we at with Ibuka Okori, a guy who has been linked to Detroit?
So I'm going to start with, I acknowledge that he is not a perfect player. He's got some holes in his game that do need to improve. So when I'm about to wax poetic on Ibuka and why I love him so much, I'm also preemptively acknowledging that, like, the playmaking numbers aren't as great as what you would want to see. I acknowledge the fact that the play finishing, especially around the rim, isn't spectacular. And I also understand that shooting 35% from deep is not some magical number that you're looking for in a lead guard. All right. So all those things I'm openly acknowledging right off the rip. But I don't care, Wes. Like, if you look at what we saw him do at Stanford this season, it's remarkable. First off, Gatorade Player of the Year out of the state of New Hampshire, one of 3 Gatorade Players of the Year that snuck up out of nowhere, and now all of a sudden we're talking about being drafted in the first round of this year. He joins the ranks of Keaton Wagler, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Kansas, and also Alan Graves, who's a redshirt freshman at Santa Clara, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year out of the state of Louisiana. So coming out of New Hampshire, plays for Brewster Academy. I was talking to Kristen Peak on a recent episode that we do over at No Ceilings, and she was telling me that the reason why he wasn't ranked so high is that he played in a stacked class at high school, and he was just a facilitator. And I say that like that's not an impressive thing, but he just ran the entire offense, okay? So doesn't get a lot of high major offers, gets offered to Stanford, moves cross country to go play at Stanford. And in a class that is pretty much defined by freshman guards, would you agree, Wes, that like top of this class, the big 4, we know who they are, but the depth of this class, I would say, is defined by freshman point guard prospects, right? Sprinkle in a few other classes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Ibuka Okori punches his way up as an undervalued, under-recruited freshman guard out of Stanford. Leads the conference. That's the ACC now. That's not just the Pac-12. He's in the ACC, which features, Duke and what have you. Awesome scorer in that crazy competitive conference on a team that, if I can frame it in the nicest way possible, Wes, he was easily the best player on the team. That's like the nicest way I can put it, right? So when you're the number 1 target on a scouting report for opposing defenses, we were talking about Giannis just a second ago, you get a sort of a wall put in front of you, right? So that speaks to, in my opinion, now people might view this as excuses, but I watched the film, 6'2", right? Or about 6'3" in shoes, weighs really well, has an outstanding wingspan, the second longest wingspan of the top point guard prospects in this class, only behind Michael Brown Jr. at about 6'7.5", right? So you're looking at almost a plus 6-inch wingspan. But he gets to the paint. That's where some of the finishing numbers kind of concern, because you have people kind of cheating over to hedge his driving, because this dude is like arguably the best ball handler in this class, arguably the fastest point guard in this class, breaks people down off the bounce. Like any college team that wanted to guard him honestly, or what's the phrasing that Victor Wembanyama used? Ethical. Anyone that wanted to guard him ethically.
The ethical hoops thing. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. Any defense that wanted to guard him ethically, he got by the initial defender. So the defense had to have that second level of the defense had to cheat over to stop him. Now, to me, that speaks to the finishing inefficiencies. Then if you look at the assist numbers, I I could point you in the direction of plenty of film that could show you that Ibuka knows how to read where his teammates are and how to pass them open. I could also show you film that shows that those guys could not hit shots to save their lives. You're looking at one of the worst, like one of the least efficient offenses in college basketball. That's with a guy who scored about 23 points per game on really good efficiency, right? And then I will kind of concede a little bit that the 3-point shot isn't the quickest release and it's probably not the prettiest, right? I think that could be fixed. I think he shows great touch. You look, he's a great free throw shooter. He shot like over 45% on his long twos. I mean, the touch is pretty evident that the kid knows how to score the basketball and score with touch. I just buy so much of what he does. Oh, and by the way, he had like a steal percentage over 2 and a block percentage over 1. So even if he's not Kingston Fleming's in this class, I think that he showed enough to at least be respectable on the defensive end at the point guard position. And so looking at Detroit, I think that you can look at a guy who could come in, help run a second unit, play alongside Cade Cunningham because Cade is long for days, right, and strong too. So I think that they can exist together. And now you got 2 guys who can kind of run and attack an offense from either side of the floor. So I think that if he's available, what pick do y'all have? What is it? 21. Okay.
21.
So 21. Yeah. So if y'all are picking at 21, I think that's a steal. I personally have him 11th on my own board.
Dang, that's high. All right. So, here's my question. I have 2 of them that I wanted to get to with Okori. The first one, you already brought up the shot.
Yep.
And, there's a little funkiness going. I've seen a good amount of kind of lower body hip sway. He seems to get off balance quite a bit. Is this something where, I mean, I know you said he's 35%, I think it was, right, from 3. Is this something that we're worried he may need to kind of rebuild from the base up? Or is this just like a little tweak, set the feet a little bit more? Is this simple, or is there something a little bit more to be concerned about there? Because the percentage is good. And then something, you see the inconsistency and maybe you get a little worried.
There are some people that like players who have exceptionally long arms for their frame. Sometimes it can be a little funky coming off, right? Like, I think that was some of the concerns that we saw with Mikal Bridges. I think, similarly in this class, Cameron Carr had some questions about his 3-point shooting efficiency. I think he answered those. I think it's just him trying to figure out exactly, I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I'm 100% a shot doctor, but I think some of it might be building the base up a little bit with his strength. I mean, he weighs well. I recently did a post that was obviously well received on Twitter where I said, these are the players that weighed in less than 180 pounds at the combine. And over the past 10 draft classes, these were the other prospects that weighed in less than 180 pounds. And that list has like 2 all-stars and the rest are kind of like, that's a little bit scary. Ibuka clears that. So I think that some of the questions that you have in terms of strength and things like that, I don't think that they're quite as prevalent, but I kind of wonder if it might be the base not necessarily being strong enough. But I think that that's something that, our guys, Corey and Albert over at No Ceilings, have done a lot of work with P3 this year, which is where they do a lot of like athletic testing, strength testing, and stuff like that, just kind of help players get better. And they say that players roughly gain about 6 to 8 pounds, I think is what the metrics were. Like, I'm not exactly quoting it, but I'm knowing ballpark. And I think if we see Okori add that over time, I think that makes the smoothness and the effectiveness of his base a little bit easier because he doesn't necessarily have like the tree trunk style legs that some of the players in this class have.
All right, so this is a tougher question, but I think, at least to me, this is pretty much the question for a player like Ibuka Okori. You're looking at a guy, undersized point guard, great athlete. I think the explosiveness as a finisher is going to come through. I think that all of that athleticism is going to come. So I'm with you. I like his game a lot. But if you're looking at archetypes, right, this is a small guard, score first guard, drive first guard. And those guys are kind of going out of style, right? Like I think a little bit about Colin Sexton, who's always had great numbers, but doesn't seem to have the contract numbers to back up what he's putting up into the stat sheet. And the vibe on him isn't as high as maybe you may have guessed if you're just kind of box score watching. So is that a concern here with a Corey, or is this something that is more overcomable for him specifically?
I mean, it's always, I love giving boring answers to question like this, Wes, and I'll just say it depends. Like I think situation and environment and coaching and tolerance and so many variables that like we just don't know the answer to right now. But they all come into play with all players, but especially someone like Abuko Okori, who is kind of streaking in out of nowhere. And I think that with a player like him, consensus almost kind of has to catch up to the level of production that he put up in college. And I'll say that in my few years of scouting that I've done this at like the level that I have, it feels like year over year, we tend to value production more so than projection in terms of like, okay, this is the draft year of the player. So this is everything that we can project moving forward of them based off what they have shown off this 1 year. I feel like the production with the Corey is there. I mean, if that's where we're at as like a scouting community at large, if we're doing production over everything, he's shown that he can carry an offense all by himself in the ACC, where he is going up against high-level D1 competition. And again, he's doing it almost with like a box and one type defense on a nightly basis. Like there's somebody attached to him all the time, and they are hedging him hard on the other side of the defense. I was listening to, the 520 podcast is Jeff Teague's podcast. I saw a clip where he was talking with, I believe it was CJ McCollum. And he said, one thing that I like about when mid-major kind of star guards are coming up, such as yourself, CJ, is that when you did what you did at college, you had to do it against an army. But when you come to the NBA, things are almost easier for you because you're guarded honestly. It's not 1 versus 5 anymore. It's 1 versus 1. So to your point, I think he does tilt more towards the score first guard, but I do think that there is more passing stuff in there. Now to answer your question archetypically, like I think he does face a little bit of a bias because we had to see him dribble the ball so much to score.
Yes.
But I think that he's almost a victim of his circumstance in that respect. If you swapped him and got, I don't know, Braden Burries, and you put him at Arizona where he's playing with Krivas, Karchenkov, Bradley, Pete, Owaka, Del Orso, like all these dudes, I think that his life becomes exponentially easier. And that's where I think we've kind of, as a scouting community, have lost sight of the projection aspect of what we do because it requires more creativity, imagination, and more courage, dare I say, to stick your neck out almost and say, hey, look, I know what I saw. Based on everything that I saw, I still think there's room for growth for someone like Abuko Okori. And especially at 21, like even let's just say like, oh my gosh, worst case scenario that we get Colin Sexton at 21. Like that's a win, brother.
Not bad.
Like,
yeah.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
All right, guys. So we're gonna move on to a different prospect, and honestly, you might break my heart with this one because this is a guy I've kind of fallen in love with. But before we do, guys, if you go pull up YouTube, watch some Abuko Okori highlights. There's something really fun in a throwback sort of way. Just watching a small score first guard who's clearly the best athlete on the floor go about business the way that he did. It's really fun to do. It is. So, all right, Steven, Joshua Jefferson. Older prospect, Iowa State. This is a guy I actually like quite a bit. So if you break my heart, you can just know, there may be repercussions against the assistant to the assistant co-host. But this is your floor. What do you think about Joshua Jefferson?
The beautiful thing about being a substitute is that there's always more schools, right? No, I'm just kidding. But Wes, I'm going to try not to break your heart here, but
no, you're good.
I'm admittedly a little bit lower on Jefferson,
okay.
And a lot of it has to come down to the shot. Now, I do understand that he shot about 40% this year, which is a fantastic mark, but this was really the only sample size over a long college career.
First year on volume, too.
Yeah. this is the first year that we've seen Jefferson really shoot. Now, does it look okay? Yeah, I think that the shot looks good. But one of my guys over at No Ceilings, Maxwell, we did a show together for, I don't know, about 3 years. I can't get it out of my head. It's a brain splinter, but like you kind of have to beware of the upperclassmen who just like out of nowhere just start shooting threes. And I'm thinking of like Kobe Brown out of Missouri whenever he was drafted 30th overall to the Los Angeles Clippers. Good athlete, good defender, great rebounder, fantastic player. Didn't really shoot until his last year of college, you know, and you could say the same thing about Trace Jackson Davis whenever he started showing the experimentation of the willingness of being able to shoot from deep. And that's after years of being a really good defender and a really good rebounder. The thing, though, about Jefferson, there's kind of two things, one good, one concerning. The good thing with him is that the shooting isn't the only thing that he brings to the table on the offensive end. You're talking about one of, if not the best playmakers in this entire class. And I'm not even just talking positionally. I'm just talking about in a vacuum, you put everybody, you know, in a jar together, you shake it up and you pour out the best shooter or the best passer, Joshua Jefferson might come out. You know what I mean? Like, he's great vision, great timing, great anticipation, can do it out of the standstill on the block. You can put him at the elbow. You can put him on a wing and run actions away from the ball with him. He's just going to find guys and he's going to pass it to them in their shooting pocket and he's going to get them the ball in the best possible place for them to be able to put the ball in the hoop. So there's that. But he's also undersized, like, and he's class. A lot of people call him a big man. I mean, this guy might be like 6'8" in shoes, might be. And so if you're running him at the 5, I mean, that's Cade Cunningham size. You know, you essentially have two Cade Cunninghams out there, but one of them is the real Cade Cunningham. The other one is like just someone who can play make like at the 5, right? So that's really the worry. And Jefferson, for all the stuff that he does well and how well he thinks the game, he's not the best mover either. I think that he's a quality defender, but especially if you're going to be playing him at the 5, I mean, B-ball Paul. I mean, how often do we survive with B-ball Paul playing the 5? I don't know how much better defensively Joshua Jefferson is going to be, if at all. And that's really the concerning part, right? Because he could do that in college. I don't know how well he's going to hold up in the NBA if he's effectively a 5-man, right? It's kind of give and take. It's concerning. You never want to give up on intelligence and someone who can just like think the game to the level that Joshua Jefferson can. If the shot's real, he probably deserves to be way higher up on my big board than he is right now. I'm just weary of the fact that we've only seen 1 year of him shooting from deep at a decent level. And I don't know how well that's going to extend out to NBA range. Like, it took him 4 years to get to the college range to be effective. It's only going to get harder for him in the NBA.
All right. So this is fascinating. So you're looking at Jefferson as a 5. I think you're the only one not the only one, I'm sure, but you're the first person that I've seen put that out there.
On an island.
I've only seen him projected at the 4. I've thought him as a 4. So this is interesting. So what about his game has you leaning towards being more of a traditional undersized big rather than, you know, a solid 4, bully ball type 4 who just maybe can moonlight a little bit up at the 5?
I don't really trust him defending out in space on like big NBA forwards who are very athletic. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily trust him out in space getting pick and rolled, if that makes sense, right? Like along the wing or the wherever, right? I don't think that he moves like that. And I think that he's decent handle, but I don't think teams are worried about him. Like, I don't think teams are worried about them closing out hard to him and him breaking down off the dribble. Like, so much of what he does, you know, at a special level comes with him operating as a standstill. So if you're talking about a guy to me who you're worried about the shot, you're worried about the ball handling and stuff like that, kind of like B-ball Paul, I don't think that he is effective at the 4. I think the best position for him is at the 5. And again, like, that comes at a risk because of the size concerns.
And I'm not trying to push back on you here. This is all
man.
Very interesting. Well, okay. So the pick and roll stuff. So the ball handling, they did a lot. Iowa State ran him as the pick and roll ball handler quite a bit. It was admittedly kind of in the mid range, right? It was more like elbow big to big stuff, right? So not a traditional high ball screen or anything like that. But he did fairly well out of that. And I'm starting to see it, I guess, is kind of where I'm getting at. Like, if that's his usage, that's not really a forward. So is that kind of the pitch you're trying to make?
Yeah, I would say that, even though he operated pick and rolls as like the ball handler, in the sense that he had the ball in his hand, it wasn't like, to your point, it wasn't out deep. And to me, is like, if you're afraid to run him out of pick and roll in space like that, there has to be like some sort of handle concern. And like, how many times have we seen like a Vince Williams Jr., a Dylan Jones, someone like that who can dribble and function with the ball in their hand, but a lot of it has to do with, I have my shoulder and back to you, shielding away, as opposed to just like facing up on you. And that's where I think he's going to run into. That takes away
some of the playmaking vision too, if that's where he really falls into.
And you're presenting the ball in a more vulnerable state for Diggs, right? So like that other side of the defense where they can, these NBA athletes, like they can strike and get back, a little bit of show and recover, from the help side. I think that he presents the ball in vulnerable states to where you don't really want to see him do that a whole lot in the NBA. And I think that's where like some of his special that he gets away with in college, I think some of that gets taken away from him at the pros.
All right, so to even devil's advocate my own excitement, I have had the thought, because admittedly, Stephen, as I was watching his tape a little bit over the past week, I was having a lot of flashbacks to Grant Williams at Tennessee. And I was actually a little excited. So Grant Williams was a guy I was really high on. And now maybe you can see I've got a type on this sort of thing. But
I love funky players.
Bigger.
I fall for those, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I was thinking uniqueness, right? He's kind of a big, he can, big forward, bully ball guy, below the rim dude, but so was Grant. And you still get that special sort of passing vision. Of course, Williams really had the 3-point shot come through and was younger. So, I guess final thoughts. I'll leave it to you on maybe like his fit specifically with Detroit. Because the other thing that could be interesting would be, assuming they maintain Tobias or find a way to bring back Tobias Harris, maybe a little mentorship sort of thing there. Because Harris is not dissimilar. If you're going to ask Jefferson to play the 4, I think Harris could do a little bit more ISO off the bounce, but you don't really want to rely on it much like they had to do in the playoffs. So maybe there's something there. But final word before we move on.
I just think that, if I'm wrong with a guy like Jefferson, it's because he's super smart and I'm just not valuing the intelligence of a player like him to just kind of find a way to make it work. I just think based off of the evidence shown that, look, if you want to take him at the end of the first round, I'm not going to raise a big stink about it. I'm just not going to do that. Right. But there are people that like him higher, and that's just like where my concerns lie. I don't know how he handles the ball. I don't know how real the shot is. I don't know how the athleticism translates. And that's like it. He becomes like a tricky player. I'll just leave it at that.
Michael Dompier in the live chat. Do you have Jefferson in the second round then?
I do.
21's too high.
21's too high for me. I have him around I think 36 or 38, somewhere around there. But yeah.
All right. Okay. So one of the fan favorites, it seems like, for the Detroit Pistons here at 21. Admittedly, don't know if this player will even be available. When we're talking to Buka Okori, it seems a little bit better than a coin flip if you're just perusing mock drafts that he's going to be there at 21. Same thing for Jefferson. Cameron Carr, however, not so much. I think I saw him as high as 9 the other day in a mock draft. So, what's the pitch? What's the excitement with Cameron Carr? And then what would be the fit in Detroit?
I think Devin Vassell did a lot for the Cam Carr stockholders in the playoffs. I mean, you can look that Vassell was a little bit thinner, but a really good 3-and-D type of a prospect out on the wing coming out of Florida State. And that's essentially the sales pitch for Cam Carr, right? Is that he's bouncy, world-class athlete. I'm not just talking about good basketball athlete, world-class, probably could have been a track star if he wanted to, athlete in the NBA. Ridiculous wingspan. I think it's close to 7'2", and he's like 6'5". So I mean, like the dude could probably tie his shoes standing up without bending over. Like those long arms are ridiculous. Incredibly bouncy, ridiculous block rate. Just on the defensive end. So you got someone who can rotate over from the weak side, make digs, challenge shots, and still get back and contest a shot from his guy because of the length and athleticism that he has. Oh, and by the way, he's just like, he could be the best 3-point shooter within this draft class, right? So I think players like Mikal Bridges, players like Devin Vassell have shown that we still need wings in the NBA, despite how there's a lot of, cry out there for we need more ball handlers or we need Victor Wembanyama stoppers. Like, there's still something to be said about being a really effective 3-and-D wing, and that's why I think that he's probably not going to be available at 21, if I'm being 100% honest with you, Wes.
Yeah, I would be skeptical of it as well. Anytime you see a player like this, it's hilarious to look at player comps sometimes, but serious people who do them, right? Not just like fans online. But like I've seen Trey Murphy. I've seen Mikal Bridges. I've seen, you just brought up Vassell. Like it seems like pick out of a hat any 3-and-D wing forward in the NBA who can kind of create their own thing every now and again, but isn't really the primary thing that they do. And that guy is getting compared to Cameron Carr. And that's, I mean, I know you said that everyone wants ball handlers, we want Wemby stoppers, but like that's still one of the most coveted archetypes of players in the league right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would be happy if you could get 3 of those same guys on one team.
The Knicks just did it.
I was just about to say the Knicks with Hart, Bridges and OG, I mean, he's not as big and thick as like an OG. And that's really like, if this dude weighed more than what he weighed, like if he was 195, 200 pounds, like he probably has a case, to be 100% honest with you, a case to be in like that top 7 or 8. And that's really like where their biggest concern lies, because, we're just speaking on the playoffs and like how these certain types of players are impactful. You have to play physically. I mean, a lot of the times when I was watching the playoffs, Wes, it would look like I was watching a receiver and a defensive back inside 3 yards from the line of scrimmage, face guarding, and like trying to break the release there. So I'm more concerned with the strength component of Carr. That's why I'm a little bit lower on him. But even me, like, I'm not the biggest Cam Carr guy at no ceilings. I'm probably one of the more reserved in terms of him, but I would still take him, in that like 15 to 19 range is kind of where I would take him. But based on what we're hearing, dude, like he might not even make that window.
Wow. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll just keep it going here. Last question I had with Carr, and honestly, this kind of applies to Corey as well. Talking a little bit with Bryce Simon from the Pistons Pulse and some other draft guys, there's always this little hesitancy, like little concern with the player who was so far and away the best guy on their college roster. They got so much volume, and then you project them into the NBA where that's just, at least right away, not going to be the case. With a Corey, with Cameron Carr, maybe it comes one day, right? Maybe one day in the future they are legit stars and they're getting to take 15 plus shots a night, but that's not what it's going to be year one. Are you worried about that at all with Cam Carr here? Just that transition for him into the NBA where, I mean, yeah, even if he's in kind of that mid-lottery pack, even a little above that, there's still a better than zero shot he's off the bench with some of these teams.
I would give a gentle pushback to the thought that like you don't want to take the best players on a college team, because typically, typically like even Marcus Smart was one of the best scorers in college basketball, even though he's like a 3-and-D guy. PJ Tucker was a lights out scorer at Texas, so just a gentle pushback on that front. But the thing that I would be okay with Cam Carr, if you're looking at like the 1 year explosion, was that people were really high on Nate Ament prior to this cycle. Mm-hmm. Goes to Tennessee and he disappointed. Even those who didn't have like super high expectations like me still walked away wanting more. Cam Carr, as soon as he left that system and he came into his respective cycle with a pretty significant steam, as soon as he left Tennessee and Baylor, for to give Tennessee credit, like Baylor's not much more of an efficient offense, like at all. You know, I think that you can make the argument that sometimes Baylor gets way more prospects than what they deserve based on how well those players perform when they get there. So it's not like he went from, you know, Tennessee to Duke or, you know, UConn or whatever. Like he went to another offense that makes me want to wash my eyeballs out with salt water. And he performed very, very well as the primary guy. I think, and what makes him special is that he doesn't have to do so much with the ball in his hands. You know, like everything that he does well is a complementary skill set that brings out the best in other people. And I think that NBA teams would look at that and view that as a positive.
All right. Well, you talked about seeing a bunch of physical play in the playoffs. I got a physical guy for you here, and I don't know what to think about Karim Lopez, to be completely honest with you. I have seen him mocked very high. I've also seen him mocked very low. I left watching his tape very confused about the type of player that he is, just to be totally upfront with you. So what do you see when you watch the Hispanic man out of Australia, right? He was over there with the Breakers.
Yeah, and Wes, I love the way you frame that, because so many people are going to speak definitively on Karim Lopez one way or the other. And I think that we're looking at an abstract painting. You know, this is a Rorschach test. You know, you're going to look at it and you're going to see something, and I'm going to look at it and see something completely different. And that's okay. That's how we interpret the painting, right?
Yeah.
Here's why I'm optimistic on him, and I'm someone who has him like 16, so I'm not like super pie in the sky with Karim Lopez. Like at one point I was higher. The more I watched, just like you, the more confused I was when I walked away from the film. Here's what I'll tell you, is that in the NBL, I don't think that you can look at efficiency numbers and walk away feeling good. You know, I think we learned that with Ousmane Dieng. I think we learned that with LaMelo Ball. And I think we're learning that with Karim Lopez, because that league is incredibly physical, you know, and the fact that he played there 2 years, like as a teenager, like a legit teenager, and averaged 12, 6, and I want to say like 2 or 3 assists, somewhere around there. I can't remember off the top of my head. Two, right? I think that's fantastic, because you were playing up against a grown, like this is where like 30 and 40-year-old men go to retire, is in the NBL, you know, and it's very physical, because those guys can't play athletically, so they have to play physically. And for Karim Lopez to come in there like as a power forward with good size and good strength and put up the level of production that he did, I think was awesome. I think that some people really overblow the foot speed concerns. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a track star, but I think that I do trust him in open space. I do think that he moves well. It's just that you're kind of looking at him in relation to the style of play that's required to succeed within that league. Kind of like what I just broke down with Okori, right? There's so much congestion. There's so much physicality. There's hand checking. There's pulling. There's yanking and all these things. And he's still able to go out there and do what he did. He goes to the NBA. Like if he sees it's only going to be in the playoffs, right? So like things are going to open up for him. And this is one of the most heralded players coming out of a country, you know, in years. So I think the stuff that he's shown, where the 3-point shot wasn't atrocious. He shot like 32, 33%, and that's improvement from the year prior. So we're seeing improvement from him in a really tough physical league as a teenager. Like, I just think that he almost presents himself as a ball of clay. And going back to the point that I made earlier, people want production, and they want to see what they want to see what they want right now, and not put in the, okay, well, this is what we know he can do, but can he do these other things? You know, if I was a team that had multiple first round picks, I think that I would be chomping at the bit to bring in someone like Karim Lopez. But if I didn't have multiple picks and I'm picking at the back half of the first round, like, this is the type of dude that I would want to take a swing on, because he's physical. Like, I know that he's going to play in the NBA day one. Like, he's going to be able to hold up physically. He's a sharp cutter. He thinks the game really well. Even though his assist numbers were low, his assist to turnover stuff was very promising, again, in the league that he was in. I think letting him play in space with like more athletic teammates around him, I think that we could see the best of his game.
So this is I don't want to ask this in a way that is negative, because I don't mean it in that way, even though the question often is presented in that way. But like, what's his plus skill? Does he have one coming in? Because you say he's a ball clay. That was kind of the vibe I was getting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that he's a good cutter and kind of sees the floor well without the ball in his hands? Is that something that he can rely on day one coming into the league? Or is this just a guy where, like he said, he's a projection, and you figure you're going to bring him in, he's going to kind of redshirt his rookie year, and you're going to hope that with the NBA training, right, he goes ahead and makes big strides moving into year two? Like, where does he kind of fall for you?
I think he's going to be one of these guys where his effort is going to be his superpower. Now, that might come across like super cheesy to some people, right? Like, people want efficiency.
Hey, we're Ron
numbers.
Holland fans on this podcast.
That's right. But if you look at like Hugo Gonzalez for the Celtics, right? Like, you look at a Brooks Barnhizer with Oklahoma City Thunder, Jordan Walsh, again, back to the Celtics, like these dudes who are just going to go out there and play hard. Pele Larson for the Miami Heat. These dudes are going to come in and just play hard and can think the game really well, but they can just do what they do for days. And especially someone like Kareem, where it's not going to be for 30 minutes. Like, it's going to come in, give you 10 to 15 minutes, and it's all going to be high energy, high effort, high physicality. I think that's what his day one NBA skill is. And then you're just hoping that 32, 33% that he shot in the NBL can continue to get up to like that 36, 37% on decent volume and like repeatability. That's what I think that you're hoping for, like in the immediacy. But then I think that you want to see how much he can do with the ball in his hand. Like, if it was me, it would be a very segmented developmental approach, where it would be like year over year, this is the one thing I would like to see you do. And I think coming in year one, hey, dude, just play hard, grab every rebound and loose ball that you can, spot up in the corners, knock down 35 to 36% of your threes, and we'll be okay. And then you want to give him the ball a little bit more just to see if there's anything else there.
So is it fair to say that Kareem Lopez is this year's kind of international man of mystery sort of player, right? Like, we've had a few of these in the past. I was a big fan of Tejan Solon a few years ago. For Pistons fans, Sekou Doumbouya. Obviously, Giannis is probably the poster child for this. But like, is this kind of the mold that we're thinking with Lopez here?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. Like, he is the international man of mystery. Like, so many international players are coming stateside to play college ball now, thanks to NIL. To where it really zapped the class. And then like Luigi Swigo probably would have been the guy that a lot of people were more enthusiastic about.
He was an interesting name. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think y'all were just like right at the cutoff point. If he said, if I was drafted top 20, I would come in, but anything outside of that, I'm going to Villanova. I don't know if Detroit might have promised him a 21 pick if he would have stayed in, but I don't know, looking at the class now, like in retrospect, if I was Detroit, it might be worth the swing to bring in a 7'3" dude who has shooting potential and shot blocking, All
right, Steven, I can't help myself. So Pistons fan 11 just mentioned that you got a new contract with the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, it's an honor, I grew up loving the Phoenix Suns and the Detroit Pistons because of Arkansas Razorbacks that played for the team. Joe Johnson was an inspiration to me in Phoenix, just like Corliss Williams, Big Nasty, one of only two more famous people from Russellville, Arkansas, the other being Braden Smith, who is in this year's draft class. It's an honor to accept this contract extension with the Phoenix Suns, and I can't wait to continue to build to a championship somewhere down the road.
Love it. Guys, if you don't know, Colin Gillaspie just re-signed with the Suns, so we're giving Steven a hard time here. All right, I can't go any longer without bringing up the Michigan man himself, Yaxel Lindeborg. Your thoughts on him? Again, this is another guy kind of in the vein of Cameron Carr. Like, he's not making it to 21, right? Maybe is he? Oh, your reaction's less solid than I expected.
Dude, I don't know. I'm sanding in quicksand with this question because there's so much evidence in both the directions that would suggest that anything could happen with Yaxel, right? Like, if you're looking to what I've been saying this whole time is, if you look at the people want production, you don't get more production than being the national player of the year on a championship winning team after being potentially drafted last year, asking for inputs on what I can do to make myself more marketable to be drafted next year, go and do that and crush it. There's so much, about him being a 24-year-old rookie that just rubbed people the wrong way. And I understand it. I think people are looking at like the Dalton Connect effect that we saw with the Los Angeles Lakers a couple years ago, because he didn't work out on, he's one of a long list of rookies that just didn't work out on a LeBron James team. And now that's like a cardinal rule that we can't draft old guys again. But, oh, by the way, Cedric Howard is looking pretty nice for the Memphis Grizzlies, even though he's an older prospect, right? So for Yaxel, he's kind of unprecedented, like a 24-year-old rookie. That doesn't happen all the time. And even Cedric Howard was drafted later than what he should have been, even though plenty of NBA teams really liked him. It's just almost kind of like an unwritten rule that you can only be so old and get drafted so high. There's also some people worry about the stupid character stuff with him. I just think he's a cornball. Like, he let the ball roll on the floor in a playoff game. Big deal. Like, I mean, have we seen what Michael Porter Jr. has done on podcasts for the Brooklyn Nets? Have we seen the stuff that LaMelo Ball does in the offseason for the Charlotte Hornets? Like, this dude is not malicious, nefarious. He's a dork. Like, I'm not worried about drafting a corny dude. And he's also like, my guy Tyler Rucker at No Ceiling Springs had brought this point up, and I really love it. I'm kind of jealous. I wish I would have thought of it first. Like, it's that good. But you kind of, especially Detroit, you kind of want guys with something that's a little bit wrong with them, right? Like, if someone messes with Cade Cunningham, you want dudes who's going to step in and intercept, like, you got no shortage of dudes like that on this team. And I think Yaxel would be very much a welcome addition in that regard. But like Dylan Brooks, are people afraid of Dylan Brooks? Probably not, but dude plays a role. He has fun, again, another dorky guy. I think that's the worst thing that you got to worry about with Yaxel Lindenberg, is just that he's goofy. There are some weird, like, I'm not going to get into particulars, but there's some like weird stuff floating around with Yaxel and like where we could expect him to go and where he should and deserving and all this other stuff. Like, it's to the point now, man, where like, honestly, I don't know. Like, if he does fall to 21, don't be surprised. Like, I would be very upset just based off of my evaluation of the guy, but like, don't be surprised, like, it's the draft, man. Weird things happen all the time.
So you say your evaluation's higher than 21, and obviously we've got a lot of Michigan fans who are listeners, so they probably all know it. But I'm sure everyone's really curious to get your perspective on Yaxel Lindenberg. So what's his pitch to the NBA, right? I mean, is he going to come in at 21 or 24 and be kind of more or less the exact same guy he was in Michigan? Do we have to discount a little bit? What are you seeing out of Yaxel's game and how it might project into the league?
I haven't heard this before, and it just popped into my head, so I don't know if this is brilliance by me or ignorance, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I think he's somewhere on the spectrum between like Tobias Harris and Jeff Green. Like, that's the type of player that I think that you're getting, right? Because both of these guys are just like really, really good at a bunch of different things, but none of them are exceptional at one thing. And that's what I think you're getting with Yaxel, right? Like, he stepped in this year and knocked down threes at a very high rate. He passed the ball. His decision-making was like up there with the best in the country. And again, not positionally, but with everybody. I think he had like a 3.1 or 3.2 assist to turnover ratio. So like, very good decision maker with the ball. And this was his first year, like, truly playing on the wing. Like, everywhere he's played, he's either played the 4 or the 5, and out of necessity, he went to play the 3 this year with Michigan and won National Player of the Year doing it. Like, that's insane. So great decision maker, great rebounder, great defender, good 3-point shooter. He's just not going to break you down off the bounce and attack the rim. So you're looking at like a very high level supporting player on your team who can do pretty much a little bit of everything.
Kind of interesting question here from Michael Dampier. Morez Johnson. Some Pistons fans are hoping he falls to 21. Is there a world that he's getting picked ahead of of Yaxel here as the National Player of the Year and the champion, right? Is that, I guess, there's a world, right? Is it fairly likely from your perspective?
I think it's fairly likely that he's the first Michigan guy off the board. I mean, I think that really the only one rivaling him right now is Ade Mara. And there's some weird smoke out about like how high you can take him based off of the minutes that he played this year at Michigan. I think that Merez has a real good shot. And to be fair, like Yaxel said as much at the combine interviews that he did. I think he was talking to Kristen and Finkelstein and John Fana for the NBA combine that NBA TV did for their coverage. And they were talking with him. And he was like, that guy over there is going to be the best out of all three of us. And he was talking about Merez Johnson. So I think that it's very likely that I'm not going to say it's very likely he goes top 12, because I do think there's a little bit of possibility he goes 13 or 14, but I think there's a strong probability that he goes lottery.
All right, Pistons fans, if you're hoping for Merez Johnson to fall down to 21, that's your sign that it's not happening. You should put your hopes intelligently elsewhere. All right, I want to do a couple of quick hitters here. I got two guys I want to do as a quick hitter, and then I got two questions that I want to ask you just kind of in general. So first would be Hans Steinbach. I know a lot of Pistons fans are big fans of him. Kind of the swing skill with him is, well, not necessarily a skill, but the swing projection. Can he be a 4? Can he be a 5? Is he more Sabonis? Is he more Vucevic, right? Where are you at with Steinbach and his game right now?
He's interesting because I had Ryan Hammer on the show the other day, and we were talking, and I asked him, like, on the Pokemon evolution line with like Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, and you got, Sabonis, Şengün, and Jokic, like in that evolutionary chain, like where does Steinbach fall? And he said neither. He said, I think God bless, what's his name? Jonas Valanciunas is kind of more the comparison. And I was like, that's interesting, because I haven't really given that much thought, but I kind of get where he's coming from, because he's very gifted offensively. He's very strong, and he's an impeccable rebounder. And I think that you want him to grow into the level of defender that Valanciunas did. But that's completely different than what my expectations and projection had been of him. So Steinbach is tricky for me personally, because he doesn't have like the level of playmaking feel of those aforementioned big three that I put in the Charmander evolutionary tract, right? So I think that the Valanciunas is more apt, because Valanciunas is like a smart guy, but you're not like running a free-flowing offense through him as like the hub, like as the decision maker. And that's what I think of with Steinbach. I think the big thing with him is the rebounding. A lot of people are putting a lot of faith in the shot, when I think that he and Merez Johnson both shot roughly the same percentage from deep this year. And I don't know, to your point, if he a 4 or 5, I don't know which one of those is best for him defensively. Like, I don't trust him out in space, like defending as a 4, but I don't know if I necessarily love him as like the center, as the anchor of my defense either. So you kind of have to have certain levels of perimeter defenders around him in order for that to succeed. Now, I think Detroit does have like that level of defense, but from what I'm hearing, I would be very surprised if he was around for pick 21.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, that I struggled with him when I was watching it, because, kind of like you said, you're worried about the defensive side of things, and I didn't really buy the jump shot, but I'm
lower on him than consensus. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm lower on him compared to where he's likely to go.
All right, one other guy that I am admittedly far lower on than consensus, Bennett Sturts, Iowa.
Okay.
What's the kind of quick hitter pitch on him? Because I would love to be convinced. The numbers are awesome, like the size. So if you could get me on the Bennett Sturts bandwagon, I would be ecstatic.
He's been incredibly successful every step of his college basketball career, and it's been all because of him. Like, despite everybody else around him, other than his head coach, he's been immensely successful despite the best efforts of the people who are supposed to be there to help him. And I mean that affectionately, because I loved Alvaro Figueres coming into the year. I thought he and Bennett Sturts were going to be the best two-man action in all of college basketball. Bennett Sturt showed up. My guy, Alvaro Figueres, did not until that one shot that he hit in March Madness, which was just a beautiful moment because his mom was there to see like one of his few games that she's ever watched, right?
I didn't know that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an incredible moment. But Bennett Sturt's like good size. I think people see white point guard and they're like, oh no, wimp. But he's like 6'4" in shoes, like weighs well, very athletic, very strong defender too, very surprisingly bouncy, sneaky athlete, I think is what we have to say, right? To fit the quota.
Contractually obligated, yeah.
Contractually obligated to say sneaky athlete. But can get up and challenge and contest shots, and he's a pest on the defensive end. And this dude plays all the time, like all the time. I think he averaged more minutes per game this year than like a regular season game would allow because of like overtimes and stuff like that. Like this dude is conditioning machine, like does not get tired. The guys told me at the NBA Combine that they watched him participate in some drills where other people were like hands on their knees, panting, sweating, and dude looked like he just walked in and showed up even though he just participated in the same drills. So he does not get tired. He is highly efficient. He is a really, really good decision maker with the ball in his hand off of a live dribble. He is an efficient three-point shooter, both off of the catch and off of the bounce. Just does everything that you want an NBA point guard to do. Just not the most overtly explosive athlete, but very smart, like akin to that of like a Ty Jerome type point guard.
Okay,
I think is what you're looking at here. And again, you're probably not like running to the podium to draft Ty Jerome if you're like a lottery pick. But I think once you get outside the lottery, you could do a heck of a lot worse and walk away with someone who's going to help the offense continue to progress while also not getting killed on the defensive end either.
All right, this all sounds really good to me. So, admittedly, my hesitation was his ability to separate. He seemed like a very good athlete. I didn't necessarily see the ability to create space too much off the bounce.
Sure.
Was that just the product of the games I was watching? Is this something that he actually does have? Or is that, he's more projecting as maybe, kind of your off-ball combo guard who can moonlight off the bench as a PG, but maybe is going to play more next to Cade Cunningham?
I think that is a very valid concern, but we have not seen him in a spot to where he's afforded a fair chance to be able to do that. So again, people could look at that as an excuse. People could look at that as a reason. Again, it's really up to how you want to evaluate it. Luckily in the NBA, they do run a lot of ball screens, and he is very, very good at running a ball screen. I don't know if I'm drafting Bennett Sturts to say, hey, go cook out on the wing in isolation or anything like that. And to your point about the Cade Cunningham thing, I think he plays with him. I think he plays without him in a second unit. I think that one thing that you could correct me if I'm wrong here, but the one thing that I think Detroit desperately needs is someone else who can create with the ball in their hand and who is a viable offensive weapon. And I think Bennett Sturts can do that. And then again, if I don't have him ranked super duper high, I actually have him, I think like 19 or 20 on my board. I mean, that just speaks to the depth and quality of players within this class. So I think that if you're picking at 21, Bennett Sturts is about as good as you're going to get with checking as many offensive boxes. I would pick Abuko Okori over him now if I had my choice between the two. And you might have the choice if you're Detroit in this year's draft. But if you walk away with Bennett Sturts, I think that that's still a fantastic selection.
All right, we got some good comments here. So I thought this one was fun. If you had to take a guess right now, who would be the most shocking player, surprising player that falls down to 21 and the Pistons have a chance to take?
Now that's with me saying that I would already not be surprised if it was Jaxel, even though it would make me very, very mad. So
you painted yourself in a corner on that one. Yeah.
I'm not going to say Jaxel. Yeah. And I did give myself crazy limitations. I'll say the one who I would be shocked falls to 21, even though I am more low on this player, would be Nate Ament, because of all the smoke that's out about him potentially being drafted at 6. There's some noise that people like him at 10. I think that there are some teams who have multiple first-round picks, looking at Chicago, Oklahoma, Memphis, people like that. Again, I have him lower than 21 on my personal board. I would be shocked if the NBA agreed with me and let him fall to 21.
All right, we got this one here from Michael Dampierre. He says the answer to the question may be Ibuka Okori, but who is the guy, Stephen, that you are highest on relative to the other draft analysts that you have interacted with? Like, who are you kind of out on a limb on with?
I mean, the answer is Ibuka Okori, but I'll pull my board up real quick and I'll give another answer just for the sake of, not repeating myself here on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I have Jaden Quaintance at 14 still, and we just did a mock draft exercise at No Ceilings today, and everyone's gonna put the little safety net out there and say the talent would say that he should be drafted even higher than what you're saying right now, Steven. But we're kind of too scared with the medicals right now to take him in that 14 range. Now, I get it. Like, I'm not running an NBA team. And I talked about this, though, for the No Ceilings mock draft. We got to, like, San Antonio, and I was like, Jaden Quaintance here. Come on, guys. Like, they need a big man. Like, what other big men are they going to take? And it was pulling teeth even for people to even see him going 20 to San Antonio. Yeah, so, and I mean, I get that people are afraid medically, but the thing that I keep saying is, like, he's going to play basketball again at some point in his life. Like, even if he's hurt now, like, he's going to come back and play. And when he does, we expect him to be good. And even if we're worried that he's going to be on a minutes restriction to kind of like Robert Williams III, who plays like, 15 to 20 minutes a night, you still draft that guy in the lottery. Like, he's really, really good for what he offers the team, especially if you have multiple first round picks. Like, if I'm the Grizzlies and I mess around and Cam Boozer falls to me at 3, I don't have him number 1, but I know a lot of people who do. Like, if you have him ranked number 1 on your board and you're the Memphis Grizzlies, you've already won the draft then by drafting the best player available at 3. Why not get greedy and just get more depth in big men and get Jaden Quaintance? Like, I already got the franchise savior in Cameron Boozer. Now you're telling me that I could get an all defensive level talent available to me like later? Like, hello, come on. Like, let's just grab the guy. Let's stop being scared, people. Like, that's just kind of where I am.
You'd take him if you were Detroit, if he was sitting there?
Dude, yes, absolutely. He's just like, I know that he doesn't offer much on offense outside of an arm's reach other than playmaking. But again, like he's such a terrifying level of athlete. Like, the torque and twitch that he provides, like in short burst quickness, you just don't find dudes like this on the street, man. Like, I would, if he's available at 21, pick him up. Like, you're legit all defensive level talent out of JQ. I mean, this could be like the Michael Porter Jr. thing. Like, people were afraid to look at him walk on stage because he looked like an old man. He's okay. Like, he's okay. He's doing all right.
Good for Brooklyn now, yeah.
He's still missing time, but he's still really good.
Last question on JQ here. Positionally, where do you think he's ending up? Are you thinking he's more of a 5, more of a 4? Where do you see him?
He's a 5. I think he's okay. He's not necessarily like a true small ball 5, but I mean, I think Jalen Duren isn't like the tallest big man out there, the same as like Bam Adebayo. Yeah. Like, I think that he's that type of a 5.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Last question I wanted to ask you, and we're going to wrap up on this one. Steven, is there any player, thinking about the Pistons here, you're coming on to a Pistons podcast, you're listing out your guys, right? Who am I expecting to talk about? Is there anyone that you are surprised I did not bring up as a fit for Detroit here at 21?
Surprised, no, but I would love to get your thoughts on 2 guys if we got the time.
Shoot, go for it.
I'll just throw them both out now. Zuby Ejiofor and Terrace Reed Jr.
All right, so I love Terrace Reed defensively as a big. He just seems so plug and play. And I know the Pistons have a lot of depth at the center position right now, but the defensive talent there are injuries that are going to happen. I don't care. I think I would go for it. I'd be excited about it. maybe not all that much at 21. That might be a bit of a reach, but I do love his game. Now, so Zuby, I wanted to ask you about, because I've not looked too much at him yet. And I know
you're not doing yourself any favors. Yeah.
What do you see? What do you see on it? Because the numbers are fascinating. The style of play is fascinating. I just haven't done enough to really speak too intelligently on it yet.
So I'm going to give all the credit or blame to Corey Tulaba of No Ceilings. You know, he's the local New Yorker that we have on our team. He's been.
We just did a mock with the Pistons Pulse. I think he took him at like 24.
Yeah, he has been propping Zuby up all year long. And I don't know why, but sometimes like if someone is like super duper in on a player, I want to just like, what's wrong with this guy? Let me go see what's wrong with this guy. So like I've been kind of hate watching him for a long time because he's an undersized big man. He doesn't shoot, like all the things that you want to find wrong with the player. Like it's not hard. But I got to the point to where, like, if people like Morez Johnson so much, like, why? How can you like Morez Johnson and not like Zuby? Because they're very similar. Like, he's a little bit older, but another powerfully built kind of like 4 or 5 man who moves his feet well will like guard smaller players 94 feet. You know, like he is that level of a defender. He's a fantastic thinker on the court too, you know, like very good decision maker. St. John's ran offense through him, you know, and then you're looking at another like hellish defender, like relentless rebounder. He just doesn't shoot. And like, I know that might be kind of damning for someone at his size, but he does pretty much everything else like at a very, very high rate. And he's such a bad boy too, man. Like I could see him thriving, like just being someone that you just put in for a little bit, you know, kind of like in the mode of like a Ron Holland, just like go out there and just be a Greyhound for a couple of minutes. Like let these guys get a spell real quick, Zuby. And I think that he could go in and do it. Like I would implore you, Wes, to go watch some Zuby before the draft. You might be like, okay, I found my new favorite potential Piston.
Love it. I mean, I just love that we're talking some upperclassmen guys here too. I mean, we talked Jefferson earlier, Zuby now. Terrace Reed is he wasn't a freshman. Why am I blanking on what? Was he a junior?
No, he was a senior. Yeah, because he's been a couple years at Michigan, and then he transferred to UConn for a couple. So he's split toward a little bit.
The Pistons are it's nice to be in a position now. Bennett Sturts too. I should have brought him up as well on that list. It's nice to be in a position as a Pistons fan to like, you look at some of these upperclassmen, you're figuring they're kind of come in, contribute right away types of players. And it actually makes sense for this team to actually be interested in something like that. Instead of, even a couple years ago, I was a big fan of Dalton Connect. And it's like, if he hit, was that going to be all that helpful to a Pistons team that went on to lose a franchise record of games? Probably not. So it's nice to be sitting there. But any other final names that you want to throw in here to say Pistons fans should be watching out for before we wrap up the show?
I would throw out just a couple of shooters like Malik Thomas, Isaiah Evans, but I don't know. Like this is where I would lean on your expertise. Like these dudes are very perimeter oriented and just floor spacers. Like I don't know.
Both those guys have been linked to the Pistons. I think actually the Pistons that came out have worked out both of them at this point.
And they're smart to do it, right? Like if you need floor spacing, you can do that. The thing that, and I'm an Arkansan, if people haven't picked up by that with the accent here, or if they just don't know me. I'm an Arkansan, and I try really hard not to be biased to like Razorback guys. Like I did not like Darius Acuff Jr. as a prospect coming into this year. He won me over. I have him 5th on my board now. I have Malik Thomas 24. I just can't help but think, man, like John Calipari guards, like what do we know about like the 2nd and 3rd guard Calipari options, like over the course of his history? If you look,
it's a good list.
I mean, Darius and Malik both were recruited as point guards. Malik, yes, it took him a little bit of time to like become acclimated to playing off ball. But if you look at what he did at the second half of the year, like fantastic shooter all season long, but he grew as a rebounder, grew as a defender. even though he didn't do as much on the ball as Darius Acuff, he had a very good assist to turnover ratio, showing that he was a playmaking guard. I'm curious to think, like, if I'm an NBA team and I know that this guy was a point guard in high school and I'm picking in the back half of the first round, I'm like, okay, I already got the 3-point shooting, which is something that all NBA teams want more of. He's shown that he can rebound and defend, something that people like you have to do if you're not going to be the star. But is there any sort of underlying playmaking or ball handling that he can bring to the table? I don't feel like you can get that with Isaiah, but Isaiah does give you more positional size, so I understand why that might be more attractive to people, and I'm not going to knock anybody for feeling that way. But when it comes to Malik, I'm like, is there a Calipari guard component that we're not taking into, our calculus here with someone like Malik Thomas?
That could be a fascinating fit with a combo guard and Danis Jenkins off the bench as well. If you're Detroit, that's interesting. That's really interesting. All right. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Steven. Thank you so much for hopping in and talking some draft here, Pistons draft with us. Can you just let everyone know where they can find all of your work and the work of the No Ceilings team as well?
Absolutely. And Wes, again, thank you so much, man, for reaching out to me. Even though it was last minute, man, like I appreciate the consideration that you even wanted to have me on the show, man. So thank you so much. Please follow No Ceilings. NoCeilingsNBA.com is like the hub of where you can find literally anything that you want for what we do. Our draft guide is out. If you're watching live, it's over my right shoulder here. You can see the artwork that we have. I have it hanging up just because it's nice to look at. But if you want to learn about all the players that are going to get drafted in this year's draft, I'm like 99% sure that you'll find them in this draft guide. But if not, NoCeilingsNBA.com, I know for a fact that you're going to find words on them over there on the website. Like even the international dudes, I wrote about those guys myself, so I know that you're going to have words on them over at the website. On socials, No Ceilings NBA. On YouTube, after you get done watching this, look up No Ceilings NBA. A lot of cool stuff that we do on there live. If you haven't watched yet, you've missed out on like live reactions to games with like the top prospects, the withdrawal deadline and stuff like that. We're going to do all that next year. So go ahead while you're looking us up, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, all that fun stuff. If you're more of a podcast person, we got a podcast for you. We have the No Ceilings NBA podcast. We have the Locked On NBA Draft podcast with No Ceilings. And we also have on the Field of 68, we do a collaboration with them called The Ground Floor. And we have 3 podcasts and all of them are hopping right now too. So if you want to, after all that, you want to follow little old me, you can still do that. Twitter is where I'm most active, at Steven G Hoops. That's Steven with a PH, the letter G, and then Hoops. And again, Wes, thanks so much for having me, man. Anytime you want me on here, just let me know and I'll make time for you, brother.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. We really appreciate it. It's always great having you on. Love No Ceilings and the work you guys are doing. You guys, if that was a long list, it's because they're doing fantastic work. So I could not echo everything that Steven just said. More, definitely go follow, read all the stuff. Again, I do it. I love the work that they're putting out. So you guys, we're going to end the show here. So make sure that you're liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. It does really help us grow both on YouTube or wherever you're listening to podcasts. I think you can even like shows and episodes on Spotify now, which I think is new because I don't think you could have done that before. So do all of that stuff. It does help us grow. If you want to leave a voicemail, hear your voice on the show, we do play that. I didn't look this week because, we wanted to do the draft deep dive. But normally we would play those out and you can hear your voice on the show. The number for that, 313-355-2717. Try to keep it under 45 seconds or so, just so we can monologue on, but we don't want everyone else to monologue on. We won't have a show. Other than that, special thank you to Sean Corp, the managing editor at Detroit Bad Boys, for sponsoring and supporting the show. Shout out to you guys for all of the great questions and talking points here this week. We'll catch you next week, whether that's on your commute or live with us here on YouTube. And we can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you.